Man, I'm built different, period. I'm just built different, man. And I've always had an eye, discipline, and a work ethic that I've had at a young age that I just apply it there.
Every grain of sand has a story to tell. Some stories are of glorious cities that built pyramids out of them. Others are of pharaohs whose tombs are filled with them. And some are of the forgotten souls who toiled under the scorching sun, making it all possible. This is one such story, the story of the Sand Rebellion. Our story begins in the heart of an unforgiving desert where the sun beats down relentlessly and the wind carries tales of woe and despair. In the sprawling empire of Al-Hazan, slaves from across the known world were brought to work in its vast network of mines, extracting the rare gems and metals that made the empire wealthy. Among these mines, the largest and most notorious was the Shattered Spine, a colossal chasm in the earth that yielded silver so pure it was said to have been wept by the moon. For decades, the slaves had suffered in silence, enduring the lash of the overseers, the gnawing hunger, and the suffocating heat. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, a rebellion against the tyranny of the empire. It started subtly with whispered conversations in the dead of night, plans hatched in the flickering shadows cast by oil lamps. At first, it was just talk. The slaves knew open revolt would be met with swift and brutal suppression. The empire's legions were too strong, its spies too numerous. They needed a different approach, one that played to their strengths and exploited the empire's weaknesses. Their chance came when the empire decided to hold its annual war games in the shadow of the Shattered Spine. The military might of Al-Hazan paraded before the emperor's box, showcasing the very weapons that kept the slaves shackled. But while the generals boasted and the crowds roared their approval, deep in the bowels of the mines, the slaves made their move. Led by a trio of unlikely heroes, Cyrus, a wiry man with eyes like chips of flint, Zara, whose beauty was only surpassed by her cunning, and Jabari, a giant of a man whose strength was matched by his gentle heart. They orchestrated a daring plan. As the festivities reached their peak, they signaled to their fellow slaves, inciting a synchronized walkout. One by one, the slaves and the various work gangs set down their tools and walked away, leaving the empire's prized mines unguarded. But their exodus was not a retreat. Oh no! It was a feint, a carefully orchestrated deception to lure the empire's attention away from the real plan. For a while, the slave walkout caused chaos and confusion, drawing the bulk of the military's attention. Cyrus, Zara, and Jabari led a small group of elite fighters deeper into the Shattered Spine. Their goal, the armory, moving like phantoms through the labyrinthine tunnels. They bypassed the abandoned checkpoints, their determination burning brightly in their chests. Finally, they reached the armory, a cavernous space filled with the tools of oppression, from sharp-edged picks and heavy hammers to lengths of sturdy rope and barrels of thick, sticky resin. With the precision born of years of labor, Cyrus and his companions selected their weapons. They took axes, sturdy shields, and long spears, weapons designed not for war, but for mining, yet capable in the hands of a skilled warrior. They also stole mounts, fast desert horses with coats of burnished gold and humps that could store precious water. These were the emperor's personal mounts, kept in stables near the mine entrances, pampered and ready for the war games. But now, they were the rebels' prize. As dawn painted the sky with hues of rebellion, our heroes emerged from the Shattered Spine, leading a small army of freed slaves. Mounted on the stolen horses, they carried with them the tools that had once been their shackles and the courage that had always been their birthright. Their first target, the supply camp! There, the slaves had endured the worst of the Empire's cruelty, the lash, the hunger, the thirst, and there they struck back. A lightning strike in the darkness, a testament to their righteous fury. The overseers and guards, caught off guard, were no match for the rebels' ferocity. Within minutes, the camp was in their control, its supplies commandeered, its prisoners freed. Word of the uprising spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of the unsuspecting populace. Many watched in awe as the ragtag army of slaves rode through the city, not as broken, beaten people, but as proud, defiant warriors. Hope, like a desert flower, bloomed in their hearts. Could this be the end of the Empire's tyranny? Could they, too, cast off the shackles of oppression? But not everyone shared in the hope. High atop the palace walls, The emperor and his advisors watched the unfolding rebellion with growing alarm. The slaves were not supposed to rise. The overseers were supposed to be vigilant. The legionnaires were at the war games. Everything was supposed to be under control. But nothing was. The slaves were fighting back, and they were winning. The emperor, a man more accustomed to the adulation of crowds than the sting of fear, paced his gilded cage, his mind racing. What to do? The seasoned advisors, their faces etched with worry, offered their counsel. Crush the rebellion swiftly and decisively. Send in the legions. The emperor hesitated. To crush the rebellion openly would be a display of weakness. The empire, the mightiest in the known world, would be shown vulnerable. He needed a different approach, something more insidious. A way to strike at the heart of the rebellion without staining the empire's honor. And then, an idea struck him like a bolt from the blue. Exploit the slaves' greatest strength, their numbers. If he couldn't defeat them in the open, he would turn their unity against them. Pit slave against slave, brother against brother. And so he hatched a plan, a wicked, devious plan that preyed on the basest of human instincts, greed and fear. Meanwhile, the rebellion was growing. Each day, the ranks of the rebels swelled as more and more slaves heard the call for freedom. They attacked more supply camps, freed more of their brethren, and grew bolder with each passing hour. But as their numbers increased, so did the challenges. More supplies were needed, more weapons, more food, more water. And the question of leadership arose. Cyrus, Zara, and Jabari. Once, the leaders by default found themselves at the helm of a movement they had never planned for. Cyrus, with his steely resolve, was the natural choice to lead the charge, but he knew that brute force alone would not win the war. Zara, with her sharp intellect, organized the logistics, ensuring that the supplies were distributed fairly and that the refugees were cared for. Jabari, with his calm strength, served as the voice of reason, reminding the hot-headed warriors to think before they charged into danger. But the real test was yet to come. For lurking in the shadows, watching and waiting, was the Empire, eager to strike at the heart of the rebellion. When the opportunity finally presented itself, it was swift and brutal. Imperial soldiers, led by a general renowned for his ruthlessness, descended upon a rebel camp like a hawk upon a dove. The element of surprise was complete. The rebels, caught off guard, were forced to flee, abandoning their wounded and their dead. Yet even in defeat, hope flickered, for hidden among the fleeing rebels were Cyrus, Zara, and Jabari. Their task now was to regroup, to rally the scattered rebels and prepare for the inevitable showdown with the Empire's might. They knew they were outgunned and outnumbered, but they were fueled by an indomitable spirit, a spirit that refused to be crushed. But how could they possibly win a war against an empire? The answer lay in the very heart of the desert, in a weapon older than time, the sand itself. The desert, with its towering dunes and endless horizon, was their ally. They knew its secrets, its moods, its whims. And they had a plan, a desperate, daring plan to turn the desert's wrath against the Empire. To be continued next week. So there we have it, the beginning of a thrilling new story. What do you think so far? Are you enjoying this ancient desert epic with its echoes of Spartacus and shades of Dune? Let me know in the comments below. Also, please remember to subscribe for updates and leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Your support really helps keep the series going. That's all for today, but I'll be back soon with another exciting installment. Until then, stay tuned and keep adventuring.
Man, I'm built different, period. I'm just built different, man. And I've always had an eye, discipline, and a work ethic that I've had at a young age that I just kind of